Inside the corruption inquiry into former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian, as findings released today. The long-awaited findings of the corruption inquiry into former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian were released today by the state's corruption watchdog. Berejiklian's downfall can be traced back to a separate investigation into her former partner's business dealings. The inquiry revealed that Berejiklian failed to disclose her knowledge of her partner's questionable activities. This shocking revelation has sent shockwaves through the political landscape, raising questions about transparency and integrity in public office. The release of the findings marks a crucial moment in New South Wales politics, as the state grapples with the consequences of this high-profile corruption scandal. Man pleads guilty to baby's manslaughter 8 years after tragic death. Olivia Hayne, a 7-month-old girl, tragically lost her life in 2015. Now, nearly 8 years later, Jake Robert Luscombe has pleaded guilty to her manslaughter. Olivia's mother, Brooke Skinner, who has fought for justice since her daughter's passing, expressed relief that closure may finally be within reach. Luscombe, who is not the child's biological father, appeared via video link for his arraignment in the Coffs Harbour District Court. Olivia's family and friends, donning shirts that read "Justice for Olivia Emily Elaine," were present to support Skinner. As the sentencing nears, the hope for justice remains strong. The PNG gang strikes again, unleashing horror on teen girls. A few hours after nightfall in the remote Southern Highlands village of Wallagu in Papua New Guinea, a gang of armed men moved in and began knocking on doors. A young woman, who the ABC is choosing to call Jane, said she opened the door assuming a loved one had come to visit. "We thought they were our relatives," Jane told the ABC. "3 of them came into the house, one of them took me." From there, an unimaginable nightmare unfolded for the women and girls. Read more about this distressing story on our website. Natalie felt like she was being tortured while giving birth. Now the hospital is under scrutiny. A year after dozens of women launched a complaint about their treatment while giving birth at Wagga Wagga Base Hospital, more mothers are coming forward to share their traumatic experiences. The Maternity Consumer Network filed a complaint against Wagga Wagga Base Hospital's maternity department to the Healthcare Complaints Commission in June last year. More than 30 women detailed allegations of routine and inappropriate use of induction of labor, poor bed management, a lack of care and respect for pain, human rights abuses, and clinical incompetence. The HCCC is finalizing its recommendations after investigating the complaint, and a statewide inquiry into birth trauma has been announced. The publicity surrounding the complaint to the HCCC has given more women the drive to speak about their treatment, including Lisa Holden, who gave birth in Wagga Wagga Base Hospital in December 2020. "I was extremely traumatized by the whole experience. I just wanted to forget it," she said. What happened to Veronica and baby Adele? Coroner probes 25-year-old WA cold case mystery. A coronial inquest is underway to investigate the disappearance of Veronica Lockyer and her infant daughter, Adele Partridge, who vanished without a trace 25 years ago on the outskirts of Perth. The inquest aims to shed light on the mysterious circumstances surrounding their disappearance. Veronica and her partner, Craig Partridge, had a tumultuous relationship marked by domestic violence and mental health challenges. The last known sighting of Veronica was in October 1998, while Adele was recorded receiving a vaccination the following month. Despite efforts to locate them, their whereabouts remain unknown. The inquest seeks to uncover the truth behind this enduring cold case. The most fun part of science, scientists discover a planet that should not exist. Scientists have made a mind-boggling discovery, a planet that defies all odds. Located about 520 light-years away, this Jupiter-sized planet should have been destroyed. But somehow, it survived. Researchers believe that it may have formed in a similar way to Tatooine, the famous fictional planet from Star Wars. This fascinating find challenges our current understanding of planetary formation and raises exciting new questions. Stay tuned as scientists continue to unravel the mysteries of this extraordinary planet. Red meat sector's target of net zero emissions is ambitious and needs more investment. The red meat industry is aiming to achieve zero net emissions by 2030, but representatives admit that this target is ambitious and will require significant investment. A report released by the CSIRO shows that the industry has already reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by 65% since 2005, mainly due to a decrease in livestock numbers during the drought. However, if livestock numbers increase again, emissions could also rise. Strategies focusing on reducing agricultural emissions, such as enteric methane, will be crucial in reaching the industry's carbon-neutral goal. These strategies include modifying feed and managing carbon-sequestering vegetation. Beef producers are optimistic that with improved industry efficiency and innovative technologies, the net zero target can be achieved. Hospitality businesses hit hard as interest rates rise while temperatures plummet. Ange Laurie opened her cafe in South Australia's southeast just before interest rates started rising. It is closing this week after falling sales, a situation facing eateries around Australia as winter bites. The combination of rising interest rates and the cold winter weather has dealt a crushing blow to the hospitality industry. Small businesses, like Ange Laurie's cafe, have struggled to stay afloat as customers tighten their belts and opt for cozy nights in instead of dining out. With interest rates on the rise, consumers are cutting back on discretionary spending, and the hospitality sector is feeling the pinch. The constant battle to keep up with rising costs and declining revenues is forcing many businesses to make tough decisions, resulting in closures and job losses. The ripple effects of this economic downturn are being felt nationwide. From bustling city restaurants to quaint country cafes, hospitality businesses are struggling to survive. The industry is calling for urgent government assistance, including tax relief and financial support, to help weather this storm. As the winter season continues, it remains to be seen how the hospitality industry will bounce back. However, one thing is clear, without immediate intervention, the heart and soul of our local communities may be lost. Weather challenging efforts to find missing Belgian tourist in Tasmania. The search for a Belgian tourist missing in Tasmania has been hampered by challenging weather conditions. Celine Kremer, an inexperienced hiker, went missing over a week ago and her family has not heard from her since June 16. Her car was found unattended at a popular hiking trail and the last signal from her phone was detected in the area. Despite intensive ground and air searches, the changing weather conditions have posed difficulties for the rescue operation. Police believe Kremer simply got lost while hiking and are appealing for any information that could help locate her. Flood-damaged homes hit the market as owners struggle with uncertainty. Flooded South Australian properties are hitting the market as owners struggle to face the prospect of rebuilding. Nathan Case had just finished renovating his shack on the banks of the Murray River in Blanchetown when the floodwaters started creeping up. Downstairs was absolutely ruined, the gyprock had fallen off and the mold in the rooms that were closed up was unbelievable, he said. Having owned the property since 2019, Mr. Case made the decision to sell it for around half of what it was worth before the flood hit in late 2022. We don't have the time for the 12, 18 or maybe even 24 months to have it repaired and restored to the way it was before, he said. We looked into demolishing the property, but you're looking at 3 or 4 years. Mr. Case said beyond the time constraints, he was concerned about rebuilding or repairing when another flood could destroy it again. It was so stressful, those 6 months from when it was going to flood to when we actually sold the property, we've never been that engrossed in something in our lives, he said. The fact it could happen this year, it could happen next year, you just don't know. We just couldn't go through that again. BH Partners proprietor Melissa Muster said the property management service was still seeing flood-impacted properties being added to the market with continued interest from prospective buyers. The real estate market is still very strong in the region, she said. People interested in properties by the river are particularly interested in location and being by the water. University of Newcastle Associate Professor of Architecture and Built Environment Iftikhar Ahmed said the trend of selling properties was not something he had seen until recent years. Most people go back and try to rebuild it, but the floods we have been having recently in eastern and southern Australia, there. Think you could be treasurer? Try this Build Your Own Budget interactive. How would you put the budget together? Every year in May, the federal government releases its annual budget, which has a dual purpose. The budget is an economic document, showing how much the government plans to spend and tax over the next 12 months, and how it relates to growth and employment. But it's also a political document because the government's decisions about who to tax and where to spend will impact Australian culture over time. Would you enjoy making those decisions? The Parliamentary Budget Office has released a Build Your Own Budget interactive that lets you do so. However, the interactive is quite sophisticated. It's in an Excel format, so it shows how Treasury officials actually put the budget together. It looks like a fantastic resource for economics teachers and students and that weird political junkie in your friendship group. But it's not something everyone will enjoy using. However, for those who are interested, aside from making your spending and taxing decisions, it also lets you make assumptions about net overseas migration, the unemployment rate, wages growth, inflation, productivity growth, and participation, to see what impact they'll have on your forecasts. It would be really damaging if Philip Lowe were reappointed as Reserve Bank Governor, economist says. In a shocking turn of events, homeowners across Australia are bracing themselves for another devastating blow to their finances. After experiencing a series of interest rate rises, many families are now facing a $3,500 increase in their monthly mortgage repayments. This comes as a betrayal to those who were reassured by Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe that rates would remain low until 2024. As the Treasurer prepares to announce the fate of Dr. Lowe, economists are divided on whether he should stay or make way for fresh leadership in the face of uncertain economic times. Trump countersues E. Jean Carroll for defamation. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has sued E. Jean Carroll for defamation, alleging she falsely accused him of rape after a jury found that he sexually abused her. In an unusual civil trial finding in May, the jury decided that he sexually abused and defamed the former Elle magazine advice columnist. Mr. Trump's counterclaim in Manhattan federal court is seeking a retraction as well as unspecified compensation and punitive damages. Ms. Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, said in a statement that Mr. Trump's filing was nothing more than his latest effort to delay accountability for the jury's verdict. Logging fears for New South Wales koalas as government urged to fast-track $80 million reserve. The New South Wales government is facing mounting pressure to accelerate the creation of the Great Koala National Park in order to protect the state's dwindling koala populations. Despite a promise to create the park, concerns have been raised about ongoing logging operations that are continuing to harm the endangered marsupials. Conservationists and crossbench MPs argue that the government's $80 million commitment will be in vain if logging activities are allowed to persist. Activists and advocacy groups have joined forces to push for a moratorium on logging while the national park's consultation is ongoing. The future of Australia's iconic koalas hangs in the balance. Physical, intellectual and moral, 3 ways the Wagner mutiny will impact Russian fighting power. The recent Wagner mutiny in Russia has far-reaching implications for the country's military capabilities. As the mutiny slowly erodes the physical, intellectual, and moral strength of the Russian military, Ukraine, with its intimate knowledge of Russian tactics, seeks to exploit this vulnerability. Mick Ryan, an expert in military strategy, discusses the potential consequences of the mutiny on Russia's fighting power and the ramifications for global politics. Corey Enright inducted into AFL Hall of Fame. Geelong's humble star, Corey Enright, has been inducted into the prestigious Australian Football League Hall of Fame. Known for his exceptional defensive skills, Enright's impressive career boasts 3 AFL premierships, 332 games, and 6 All-Australian selections. Even after retiring as a player in 2016, Enright continued to contribute to the sport as an assistant coach. The Eyre Peninsula native expressed gratitude towards those who supported him throughout his journey, highlighting his childhood coach Danny Horgan. Enright's hometown of Kimber honoured his achievements by naming their local footy ground the Corey Enright Oval. Queensland Health Boss's successor will have to counter a culture of fear, and let the light in. Queensland Health is in search of a new Director-General to replace Sean Drummond, who is leaving after a tumultuous tenure. The incoming leader will need to tackle a culture of fear that has plagued the department and work towards greater transparency. Patient safety issues have been kept in the dark for too long, and the new Director-General must pledge to bring them out into the open. With the opportunity for a fresh start, Queensland Health has a chance to rebuild trust and prioritise the well-being of its patients. WTA announces ambitious plan for equal pay in tennis by 2027. The governing body of women's tennis, the WTA, has unveiled an ambitious new circuit structure aimed at achieving equal prize money for men and women at combined WTA 1,500 events by 2027. This move comes as part of the sport's ongoing efforts to promote equality. While the 4 Grand Slams have already been offering equal prize money for both genders, WTA Tour events have lagged behind. With this new strategy, the WTA aims to rectify the disparity and ensure sustainable change for players and tournaments. The revised calendar will also include additional premium events and revised entry rules to attract top athletes. Police deliberately refused to investigate Bondi deaths as gay hate crimes, inquiry told. New South Wales Police sought to discredit a coroner's findings relating to the deaths of 3 men suspected of being the victims of gay hate crimes, an inquiry has been told. The Special Commission of Inquiry into Unsolved Deaths suspected of being LGBTIQ hate crimes heard details about the deaths of Win News newsreader Ross Warren, French national Gilles Mattini, and bartender John Russell in the late 1980s. Will Stuart Robert be one of the new National Anti-Corruption Commission's first targets? In a surprising turn of events, Prime Minister Scott Morrison's dismissal of a National Anti-Corruption Commission as a «fringe issue» seems to have come back to haunt him. With the commission finally becoming a reality, speculation is rife as to who its first targets will be. Stuart Robert, the controversial Minister for Employment and the Public Service, is now under intense scrutiny. With his involvement in the Synergy 360 consultancy firm and reports of potential conflicts of interest, the spotlight is firmly on him. As the nation eagerly awaits the Commission's first moves, the question remains, will Stuart Robert be its primary focus? Birdsville track closure leaves Big Red Bash goers stranded. Heavy rains in South Australia's far north have forced the closure of the Birdsville track, leaving around 30 people stranded at a remote hotel on their way to the Big Red Bash Music Festival. Recent downpours of up to 50 mm have made the road impassable, forcing festival goers to rethink their travel plans. Festival organisers are giving daily updates and have decided to open the campgrounds early to accommodate those already in the area. Travellers are advised to take an alternate route through far west New South Wales, adding at least a day to their journey. Despite the setbacks, the festival's founder remains optimistic and encourages attendees to plan accordingly. Tragedy strikes, Russian missile attack claims more lives in Ukrainian restaurant. 2 more bodies, including that of a 4th child, have been recovered from the wreckage of a restaurant in Kramatorsk, Ukraine, following a devastating Russian missile strike. The death toll has now risen to 10, with at least 61 people left wounded. Rescue efforts are ongoing as emergency workers sift through the debris in search of survivors. This tragic event highlights the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine and the devastating impact it has on innocent civilians. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for Russia to be held accountable for its actions. U.S. court dismisses Hans Niemann's $150 million defamation lawsuit against fellow chess star Magnus Carlsen. Chess prodigy Hans Niemann's $150 million defamation lawsuit against Magnus Carlsen and Chess.com has been dismissed by a U.S. federal court. Niemann claimed Carlsen and Chess.com colluded to exclude him from lucrative tournaments, while Carlsen accused Niemann of cheating. The court ruled in favor of Carlson, stating that Neiman's claims broke no antitrust laws. Neiman's lawyers plan to pursue defamation claims in state court, while Carlson's attorney sees this dismissal as a victory for free speech. Chess.com expressed relief that the legal battle is over and hopes to focus on growing the game of chess. Child soldiers on the rise in Syria even as fighting subsides. When a 13-year-old Kurdish girl went missing on her way home from a school exam last month, after being approached by a man from an armed group, her parents immediately feared the worst, that she had been persuaded to join the group and was taken to one of its training camps. The girl, Payal Akil, was with friends when she encountered the man, who turned out to be a recruiter for a group known as the Revolutionary Youth. She followed him to one of the group's centers in the city of Qamishli in northeast Syria. Her friends waited for her outside, but she never emerged. Payal's mother, Hamran Aluji, said she and her husband complained to local authorities, to no avail. The group later said Payal joined willingly, a claim rejected by Aluji. "We consider that at this age, she cannot give consent, even if she was convinced, by the group's program," Aluji said, sitting for an interview in her daughter's room, filled with stuffed animals and school texts. Armed groups have recruited children throughout the past 12 years of conflict and civil war in Syria. A new United Nations report on recruitment says the use of child soldiers in Syria is growing even as fighting in most parts of Syria is winding down. The number of children recruited by armed groups in Syria has risen steadily over the past 3 years, from 813 in 2020 to 1,296 in 2021 and 1,696 in 2022, the UN says. Among those allegedly recruiting children is a U.S. ally in the battle against Islamic State extremists, the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces (SDF), according to the UN. In 2022, the UN attributed half the cases, or 637, to the SDF and associated groups in northeast Syria. The report also said, Lukashenko says Putin wanted to wipe out Prigozhin, as Zelensky calls Russian leaders bandits. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko has claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to wipe out Yevgeny Prigozhin, the elusive Russian businessman and alleged mastermind behind the Wagner Group mercenary outfit. The statement comes after a mutiny within the Wagner Group, which initially drew Putin's vow to crush the rebellion. However, a sudden deal was reached allowing Prigozhin and some of his fighters to find refuge in Belarus. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russian leaders of being bandits for their involvement in the Wagner Group's activities. The dynamics between these leaders continue to evolve, raising questions about their true intentions and the future of regional stability. Labour axes Morrison government's billion-dollar Australian satellite program. The Labour Party has made the decision to scrap the Morrison government's plan to develop new Australian satellites, as part of its efforts to find budget savings. The National Space Mission for Earth Observation (NSMEO) program, which aimed to gather data on natural disasters, agriculture, and marine surveillance, will now be cancelled. Instead, Labour will rely on international partners for crucial Earth observation data. While the Albanese government emphasises its commitment to the space sector, industry experts and staff impacted by the decision express concerns about missed opportunities. This move follows Labour's termination of other space programs in last month's budget. Why coal-producing communities will need more than just hydrogen to adapt to clean future. Debris from imploded Titan submersible returned to shore as investigation continues. Debris from the lost submersible Titan has been returned to land after a fatal implosion during its voyage to the wreck of the Titanic. The return of the debris to port in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, is a key piece of the investigation into why the submersible imploded, killing all 5 on board. Twisted chunks of the near 7-meter submersible came ashore at a Canadian Coast Guard pier on Wednesday.